What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of One Piece Wednesdays. This series is here to help you catch up on the story, and today we're taking a look at the Syrup Village arc. So right after the Gaiman arc, Nami makes it crystal clear the crew isn't ready for the Grand Line yet. With just 2 tiny boats, their top priority has to be growing their team and finding a real pirate ship. That's when the story shifts to Syrup Village, where we meet Usopp for the first time. He's basically a real-life boy who cried wolf, constantly running through the village, yelling that pirates are attacking, only to prank the locals and run off laughing. He leaps into a tree, proud of himself for bringing a little excitement to their quiet days. We're also introduced to his loyal little pirate crew, 3 energetic kids named Pepper, Carrot, and Onion. Onion comes rushing in, panicking that pirates have actually arrived, referring to Luffy and the others landing ashore. This gives us our first real look at Usopp's personality. He's a bold liar, but also someone who's usually afraid. He's happy to confront pirates when the odds are clearly in his favor, and if their ship had been any bigger, he probably would have run the other way. Back at the shore, Usopp and the kids are spying on the newcomers. Zoro quickly spots them, the 3 children scatter, and poor Usopp is left standing alone. And that's when he puts on a big show, claiming he's a notorious pirate captain and the ruler of the entire village. The crew doesn't buy it for a second, but Luffy immediately takes a liking to him. Later at a local restaurant, Usopp learns the group is searching for new crew members and a proper ship. He tells them that he knows just the place, a grand mansion owned by a young, bedridden girl named Kaya. About a year ago, her parents passed away, leaving her with a massive inheritance. Nami seems uninterested at first, but before they go, Usopp boldly asks to join their crew. As captain, of course, the others quickly shut that idea down. We then cut to the elegant mansion, where we're introduced to the gentle Kaya and her mysterious caretaker, Klahadore. Back at the restaurant, Usopp's loyal little crew, Carrot, Pepper, and Onion, bursts in looking for him. When they realize that he's not there, they tell Luffy and the others that he's probably gone to visit the sick girl at the mansion. We cut back to the elegant mansion, where we get a much better look at Kaya, the gentle young mistress, and her strict butler, Klahadore. Before her parents passed away, they entrusted Klahadore with caring for her. Kaya often feels lonely and sad in her current life, but there's one bright moment in her day, and that's when Usopp arrives to tell her about his grand pirate adventures. True to form, Usopp spins exciting tales to bring a smile to her face. Meanwhile, the kids explain to the crew that he's been doing this for over a year just to cheer her up. Hearing this, Luffy realizes what a kind-hearted guy Usopp really is and suggests that they head over to the mansion to ask Kaya about getting a ship. Before long, the group has already slipped into the mansion's grounds. Klahadore quickly catches wind of the intrusion and calls for the guards. Luffy and the crew introduce themselves to Kaya, but Klahadore abruptly cuts the meeting short. Usopp tries one of his signature tall tales on the butler, but Klahadore fires back with a cutting remark about Usopp's pirate father. The insult clearly stings. Kaya looks upset by her butler's harsh words, but Klahadore keeps pushing. Finally, Usopp snaps, and he punches Klahadore square in the face and proudly declares, "I am the son of a pirate, and he's a brave warrior of the sea." He admits that he tells plenty of made-up stories, but he'll never lie about his family's legacy. But Klahadore isn't done yet. He pushes further, cruelly suggesting that the only reason Usopp visits Kaya is because he's romantically interested in her and her fortune. Usopp has finally had enough, and before things can escalate anymore, Kaya steps in and ends the argument. Heartbroken, Usopp turns to leave, declaring that he will never return to the mansion again. Shortly after we see more of Klahadore's true nature, he immediately starts putting himself down in front of Kaya, saying things like, "Oh, you must hate me now for how I treated Usopp," in a clear attempt to manipulate her sympathy. Unfortunately, the tactic works, and Kaya begins to soften towards him. We then cut back to the crew, where both Luffy and Usopp are missing. Zoro, Nami, and the 3 kids suddenly spot a strange figure walking backwards through the streets. And this is a fun, obvious little nod to Michael Jackson. This is our introduction to Django, the hypnotist. He tries to show off one of his tricks, but it quickly becomes clear that he's not exactly an expert at what he does. Meanwhile, Luffy finds Usopp and does his best to cheer him up, and in a heartfelt moment, Luffy reveals that he actually knows Usopp's father, Yasopp, a member of Shanks' red-haired pirates. We also did see Yasopp briefly during Luffy's childhood flashbacks. Usopp is surprised, but excited to learn more, and the two begin to bond over their shared connection to his father. We get a quick flashback to Luffy's time with Yasopp, who was always proudly talking about his son whenever whenever he had the chance. Their friendly conversation is suddenly interrupted when they overhear Klahadore and Django secretly meeting nearby. The two are plotting something sinister called Operation Murder Miss Kaya. And yes, the name seems a little bit on the nose, but that's just the charm that we get from these early One Piece villains. Just then, Django slips up and calls Klahadore by his real name, Captain Kuro. Kuro quickly tells him to keep that name quiet, but it's too late. Usopp and Luffy have already overheard everything. Usopp immediately recognizes the name. Captain Kuro was once a notorious pirate, famous for his carefully planned raids and ruthless strategy. Rumors said he was caught by the Navy and executed 3 years ago, which lines up perfectly with the timeline of when Klahadore first appeared at the mansion, right around the time Kaya's parents passed away. It turns out that Django was one of Captain Kuro's crew members, and the two villains continue their scheme, with Kuro insisting that Kaya's death must look like a tragic accident to avoid drawing any unwanted attention. His plan? Use Django's hypnotic powers to make her write a will that leaves everything to him. It's then revealed that Captain Kuro's pirates have been hiding on the island for a while, patiently waiting for the signal to strike. Usopp starts spiraling, overwhelmed by what they have just overheard, but in true Luffy fashion, he stands up without hesitation and boldly calls out the villains, warning them not to harm Kaya. Django quickly responds with his hypnotic pendulum, and this time the trick works perfectly on Luffy. Troubled and desperate, Usopp decides to rush back to the village to warn everyone that real pirates are coming. Just like the boy who cried wolf, his warnings fall on deaf ears. Meanwhile, Kuro's crew finally reaches the shore and begins preparing their invasion. Back at the mansion, Kaya is having a gentle conversation with her loyal caretaker Mary while preparing a special gift for Klahadore. In the village, Usopp is now reaping what he has sown. The residents chase him away in frustration. At the same time, Luffy manages to snap out of his trance and quickly fill Zoro, Nami, and the three kids in on Captain Kuro's deadly plan. Usopp races to the mansion and urgently tries to warn Kaya about Klahadore's true intentions, and once again, his words are dismissed. When the mansion's bodyguards rush in to remove him, Usopp stands his ground and fights back. Overwhelmed by the chaos, Kaya slaps Usopp across the face and sadly concludes that he really is the villain in this story. Mary then pulls out a gun and fires as Usopp barely escapes the estate. Later that night, Usopp meets up with Luffy and the crew, and with a newfound determination, he declares his resolve to stand and fight against the Kuro pirates. Impressed by his courage, Luffy, Nami, and Zoro agree to join him in the battle. Shortly after, Usopp and the crew begin planning their counterattack. Curious about his new allies, Usopp asks what each of them can actually do, and they all reply with a short, comedic, and surprisingly accurate line. Zoro cuts things, Luffy stretches, Nami steals, and admittedly, Usopp says that he will run and hide. Even now, that simple description holds up surprisingly well for the rest of the story of One Piece. Back at the mansion, Klahadore returns and Mary presents him with the anniversary gift Kaya had carefully prepared for him. But the time for pretending is over. Kuro drops his gentle facade, smashes the gift to pieces, reveals his deadly clawed weapons, and cuts down Mary on the spot. Meanwhile, at the shore, the Black Cat pirates prepare to launch their invasion of the village. Usopp and the others are ready with their own counter plan. From here, most of the arc turns into this giant fight between the Straw Hats and the Black Cat pirates. To raise the stakes, Luffy and Zoro initially head to the wrong side of the island, leaving Usopp and Nami to hold the line on their own for a while. Just when things start looking grim, Luffy and Zoro finally arrive, ready to turn the tide. While waiting for his crew, Captain Kuro grows impatient and decides to investigate the delay himself. More fighting breaks out, giving us a thrilling look at Luffy and Zoro's growing strength. But the clock is ticking as Kuro slowly makes his way towards the shore. Back at the mansion, Kaya wakes up and finds Mary badly injured on the ground. Still alive, Mary reveals the truth. Klahadore is actually the pirate Captain Kuro. Devastated, Kaya remembers Usopp's early warnings and reflects on how unfairly she treated him. With newfound resolve, she decides to confront Klahadore herself. She gathers revives her strength and heads out of the estate. Down at the shore, we're briefly introduced to two members of the Black Cat Pirates, Sham and Butchie, the ship guards. Now, some people say Sham. I'm not entirely sure what the exact pronunciation is, but just know that they are not important to the story at all. You can go ahead and forget about them. After several more hard-fought battles, Captain Kuro finally reaches the battlefield. After a brief mutiny from his own crew, Captain Kuro demonstrates his terrifying skill and issues a chilling ultimatum. If they don't finish the job in the next 5 minutes, he's gonna kill everyone himself. Another intense, drawn-out battle follows. Thankfully, Luffy is back in the fight and ready to go. Just then, Kaya arrives at the shore and bravely confronts Klahadore about his actions. Once the full truth sinks in, she pulls out a pistol, determined to end the nightmare once and for all. In the chaos, Usopp seizes the moment and launches his own attack on Kuro. Unfortunately, he's no match for the infamous pirate. Right as Usopp is about to be defeated, Luffy steps in to take on Kuro directly. The three kids, Pepper, Carrot, and Onion, try to help by jumping in while Kuro is distracted, but their efforts barely faze him. Kuro's focus remains locked on Luffy. Amid the fighting, Usopp urges Kaya to stay safe. He orders the children to protect her and lead her away from the battlefield. They escape into the nearby forest, with Django quickly pursuing them. From this point, the story cleverly cuts back and forth between Luffy's fierce battle with Kuro and Django's pursuit of the kids. Also worth noting, during this arc, the cover pages show a fun side story of what happened to Buggy after his fight with Luffy, so if you are reading the manga, I highly recommend you check out those cover pages because they do provide some interesting insight as to the lore of One Piece outside of what Luffy is actually doing in the story. During the fight, we get a quick flashback showing how Captain Kuro faked his own death to escape the Navy. While it's somewhat interesting, it's not really essential to the main story. The short version is that the once feared Captain Kuro of the Thousand Plans grew tired of the pirate life and successfully staged his disappearance. The end. Now back to the battlefield. Luffy clearly has the upper hand, and Kuro is beginning to lose his calm demeanor. In the forest, Pepper, Carrot, and Onion continue their spirited battle against Django, holding their own surprisingly well. Frustrated and cornered, Kuro unleashes his ultimate technique, sacrificing accuracy for blinding speed. In his rampage, he even attacks some of his own crew members. Luffy is appalled and shouts, "Do you even care about your own crew?" Luffy sees straight through the attack, shuts it down completely, and declares that he will never become a pirate like Kuro. He then wraps himself around his opponent and delivers a powerful headbutt, finally ending the battle against the Black Cat Pirates. At the same time, Zoro and Usopp slipped away to take care of Django, wrapping up both fights simultaneously. With victory secured, Luffy proudly proclaims once again that he will become the king of the pirates. We also see some meaningful growth from Usopp. After the fighting ends, he tells his little crew that the entire battle was just another one of his lies, and he asks them to keep it a secret. He then reunites with Luffy's group, thanks them for saving the village, and reveals that he has made a big decision. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, Kaya tends to Mary's wounds and mentions that she has a special request for him. In the forest, Usopp gathers Carrot, Pepper, and Onion. He tells them that the Jolly Roger is calling his name, encourages them to never give up on their own dreams, and officially disbands the Usopp Pirates. Later, at a local restaurant, Luffy and the crew are enjoying a well-earned meal when Kaya arrives and offers them the perfect solution to their ship problem. She leads them to the shore, where she gifts them the beautiful caravel known as the Going Merry, or the Merry Go. It really depends what translation you're reading, but you'll hear those names interchangeably throughout the story: Merry Go and Going Merry. Just then, Usopp comes tumbling down the hill with his bags packed. He tells Kaya he's decided to leave the island and promises to return one day with even greater stories. Except this time, they're all gonna be true. Though he initially says he wants to set out on his own journey, Zoro quickly tells him to stop talking and just get on board. Luffy smiles and says, "We're a team, aren't we?" Overjoyed, Usopp leaps into the air and jokingly declares that he's gonna be their captain, much to everyone's amusement. As the Going Merry sails away, Carrot, Pepper, and Onion watch from afar, while Kaya and Mary look on from a nearby hill. Mary then shares a touching story about Usopp's past. After his father Yasopp left to become a pirate, Usopp lost his mother. On her deathbed, young Usopp shouted that pirates were coming and that his dad had returned, hoping to give her one last bit of hope. With tears in his eyes and a big smile, he told her he would keep on dreaming because he was the son of a pirate. Mary reflects that even long after her passing, Usopp continued shouting those warnings, a lie that carried his deepest desire to one day sail away and become a pirate himself. Back on the ship, Usopp celebrates with his new crew. In a beautiful full circle moment, we see Pepper, Carrot, and Onion running through the village one last time, excitedly shouting that pirates are coming. Out on the open seas, Luffy proudly unveils a new pirate flag that he drew himself, and while he thinks it looks fantastic, the rest of the crew isn't so sure. Usopp gives it a brave attempt, but they soon settle on a much improved design that everyone likes a lot more. With that, the Going Merry feels truly complete. On the side of the ship, Luffy tests out their new cannon on a nearby rock. With rather mixed results, Usopp steps in and takes the rock down with one perfect shot. Impressed, Luffy instantly knows Usopp's ideal role on the crew, their sharpshooter and sniper. Luffy also mentions that there's still one important position left to fill before entering the Grand Line: a musician. The crew quickly pushes back on the idea, but their conversation is interrupted when an angry stranger suddenly boards their ship and starts causing a commotion. This furious newcomer is Johnny, and he's upset with the crew for apparently harming his partner. A confused Luffy quickly settles him down, while Zoro steps out and immediately recognizes him. Johnny explains that his partner Yosaku is in bad shape, bleeding from old wounds. He explains that while they were resting on a rock, they were suddenly struck by a cannonball, which was a funny callback to Luffy and Usopp's earlier target practice. The crew realizes that it was their fault. Johnny mentions that they've been struggling for days, and Nami quickly diagnoses the problem: scurvy, caused by a lack of proper nutrition on long voyages. She takes charge, giving him lime juice, and he recovers almost instantly. Johnny and Yosaku excitedly introduce themselves as some of Zoro's old bounty hunting partners. Nami then explains how important fresh fruits and vegetables are at sea, leading the crew to realize that they desperately need a skilled sea cook. Luckily, Johnny knows exactly where to find one: a famous ocean-going restaurant called Baratier. He also gives Zoro a heads up. Hawkeye is known to visit that restaurant, which appears to catch Zoro's attention. With Johnny and Yosaku now aboard as guides, Luffy and the crew set sail north towards Baratier, excited for whatever comes next. And that's where we're gonna wrap up this episode of One Piece Wednesdays. But before you go, I have one question to impart to you, just to keep in the back of your mind so you know what's coming in the future. Who is Hawkeye, and why is Zoro so interested in him? The Syrup Village arc did give us a lovable new crewmate, Usopp, and he is going to be the comedic relief moving forward in the story. And one thing that I forgot to mention that I do want to depart to you guys is Django, the hypnotist who looks oddly like Michael Jackson. He will be returning later in the story, though he is not all that important of a character, so just keep him in the back of your mind. You can forget about him if you'd like, it truly doesn't matter. And if you missed any of my previous videos of One Piece Wednesdays, feel free to hit the link and check it out. Don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss a future upload, and I will see you in the next video. You still here?